Okay, so this tutorial is going to be on essentially intermediate multi-level, multi-component animation for static animation, by which I mean basically we're just having one animation that we're going to design, and we're going to design the building blocks of an animation system from scratch in NifSkope. This is necessary because we can't just go from binary state animation. We just did attach reference animation in the previous tutorial and go all the way to behavior graphs without kind of getting into the machinery of what makes this thing work anyway, because I don't want people to get confused and get lost and such. So at this point, if you're watching this tutorial, I expect that you can navigate NifSkope pretty well. You kind of get a sense of the structure of the NI system. So if you don't know how to get to this point, there are tutorials I have look on my website or link in the description, maybe to some of them, to get to this point where you have something that you can import into Skyrim that works, a static mesh that works. So here we are. Step one of this tutorial, maybe step zero, the pre-processing step, if you will, is to get everything set up so you have basically an NIF file that you can import as a static mesh in Skyrim. And that includes the collision objects. Now, here's the kind of the caveat for this is I have two of them, and neither of them are linked to the BS fade node. So what you need to do is create a vessel like this, because chunk merge isn't friendly with multiple bhk collision objects. You create a vessel like this that's empty, and you generate the collision objects for each of your NI nodes here. So for example, make the target the vessel with your particular collision object, and convert. Then you're going to open up your vessel, and it'll have the collision object here, obviously. Then you have to copy these piece by piece over to your actual file, right? One by one, and then link them properly. Right, link them through properly as they are here, so everything is referenced properly. And then after that, what you have to do is, instead of linking it in the NI node here in the collision object reference, you're not going to do that. You're going to go to your particular NI node. So for example, this is a railing. You can see it's kind of an elevator. You're going to reference it in the NI node pertaining to that particular piece of the static mesh. So it's right here instead. And furthermore, your target in the root collision object piece is the node itself. It's not pointing to the root node, it's pointing to the NI node. However, the one down here, mesh shape, should be pointing to the root node. Right? So the only thing that's different is that you're pointing to the NI node in the bhk collision object. And you do that for however many nodes you have. So this one's pointing there, this one's pointing to the root node. Step one is then to name all of your nodes, including the root node. So for example, you can see here, this is named root node, this is named railing. They all have names. All of the tree shapes and NI nodes have names. The next thing you're going to do is go to NI default AV object palette. This is kind of the thing that accounts for every NI node and tree shape that's in the file. What you're going to do is name and reference each NI node or tree shape. So for example, I have railing, and that corresponds to number 3, right? So you can see that it's equal. and railing shape, that corresponds to number 9. Then I have lift, corresponds to number 13, and so on and so forth. And so you do this for all the NI nodes and Nitri shapes in your system. And once you're done with that, you should have as many in here, right? So I have 5 because I have 5 nodes and Nitri shapes in total. So after that, you're going to go to NI Controller Manager. The flags for this are 76. The frequency is 1. Phase is 0. And start is float max. Stop is float min. Our target is a root node, so that's the BS fade node number 2. And we're going to just add one sequence for now. So you have one sequence here. And for this, we're going to put 1 there because we just added our object palette. The next thing we have to do is add the NI transform, multi-target transform controller, because this is basically the thing that's going to actually send off the animation, the numbers, once something is called, the controller manager passes on operations to this thing. So flags for this is 108, frequency 1, again, float max, float min. Our target is BS fade node. Extra targets, let's add 1, and we're going to target the lift, which is number 15 here. So you see number 15, that's the lift. Because we're not going to move the railing, we just want to move the lift itself. And so in this NI controller manager, the next controller is going to be 0, NI multi-target transform controller. Okay? We're done with that. So let's quickly just peruse this. So next we have to add an NI controller sequence. We're going to add 1 controlled block for now. This is going to be cycle clamp. Unknown int to 1 controlled blocks. We have 1 controlled block. We already did that. Start and stop time. How long do you want for your animation to get from point A to point B? So I'm going to say 5 seconds, right? And you kind of have to get a sense of how fast you want to travel. You want your elevator or whatever to travel. The manager for this thing is number 2. It's NI controller manager. Okay. So let's quickly hook this up. Controller sequences, the thing that we just added is the controller sequence. Okay. Now we need to name it. We're going to name it play 01 because it's going to correspond to the behavior graph that we were using the last time. And let's see here, expand control blocks. We haven't added an interpolator. Controller type is NI transform controller. Variable 1 and 2 don't matter for our purposes. I'll explain that in another tutorial. Node name is going to be lift. Let's see, lift right there. Yeah. Our controller is NI multi-target transform controller. Let's go ahead and add the NI transform interpolator and NI transform data. Let's hook them up right here. So ni transform data 0. Sometimes they don't work for this. I don't think this is really important, but see if I can find if I have something open already that has that. Okay. So you just copy it from rotate helper 90CW, which you can export in DLCO2. So in Dragonborn meshes, it'll have DLCO2 attach objects, and you'll just look for an NI transform interpolator, paste over. I don't think you have to do this. I don't remember. I like to be safe, so okay. So we have NI controller sequence. This interpolator, this is what we're talking about. It's number 1. Now here, target name is root node. It's the name of our BS. Let's see what we have so far. Cycle clamp, that's correct. 0 to 5, frequency is 1. So next thing we have to do is add a NI text key extra data here. Okay, so what we have so far, this is all fine. Go to, this is the animation name, remember. Play 01 is the animation name. Okay, so let's put our text keys here. NI text key extra data is in there. So let's just move our controller inside. Alright, so NI controller manager is the controller of root node. You can see now the NI NifSkope noticed that we have an animation, so it's playing it, but we haven't finished it yet. So let's add 3 keys here, and what I'm going to do is actually, I mentioned this in a previous video, or tutorial rather. This is going to say start. The last one is going to say end. And let's put this to the corresponding 5 seconds that we put here, or however much time you put there. 5 seconds for me. And so this one in the middle, we're going to go to, let's look up OBJ and let's look at sound description, sound descriptor. And I don't know, active. It doesn't really matter for me, but basically this is going to be the sound that plays when the mover, the elevator, whatever you have, is activated. The sequence starts. So we put sound colon the name of the sound descriptor, like that. Sound colon space the name of the sound descriptor at 0 seconds. Or you can also, I mean, as long as it's between the start and end times, maybe you want to delay it for whatever reason. Okay, that's done. Finally, we have to set this. I'm just going to put 2 keys, keep it simple. Interpolation, very important. Linear key, because we're not doing anything fancy. And then 0 to 5, I put 5 seconds. I'm going to put it to 1536, okay. And you see now it has the animation itself. And at this point, you can be quite sure that it at least plays in Creation Kit itself. A few things we have to do. Here, let's enable Havoc and enable animation. 139 there. And another thing we have to do is go to Bethesda, see if I remember what it's called here, BS, Behavior Graph Extra Data. And so here's the thing. For this one, we'll just copy over the rotate helper. So like I said, go to rotate helper. It's in DLCO2. This will be DLCO2, and then you'll have a folder called attach objects. This is in meshes, and then inside there, rotate helper 90cw.nif, or whichever one. It really doesn't matter, as long as it's one of the rotate helpers. And let's see here if I can find. No. Okay, rotate helper 90cw01. And we're going to just copy this VS behavior graph extra data and paste it over, or just copy it and paste it over without making a new one. But then you're going to have to copy the string over as well. So you should have this right here. And so here in the extra data list, add a new element, 0. And finally, change it to bhkRigidBody. The name of it is bhkRigidBody. Okay. We're not quite done yet, because, so I'm going to just save this as tutorial there. I'm going to move it. And so the next thing we have to do is some extra flags here, basically. Let's put this as 142. Really what we need is for collision detection to be continue. And not doing anything for this, but maybe later. 14. Those shouldn't quite matter in most cases, but I'm meticulous. Okay, so that's done. Okay, and root node has that already. Now, one thing we have to do, go open your Dawnguard BSA, navigate to Meshes, DLC 01 Architecture, Snow Elf Ruins, and we're going to open DLC1 waygate.nif. This is just me being lazy. There are a few things you need to change, but I don't want to have to navigate through all this and specify what to change. So you see there's a NI node 13. Navigate to the rigid body. Copy this and paste it over rigid body here. Right. So you can tell that it's changed because it should have primarily these. You should not see an invalid here. So there's one that says invalid. It should not be invalid. And it should have extra information here. Okay, so that's done. Oh, and one more. Of course, you have to make sure that it properly references it. So fix that reference degeneracy. Okay. Okay, so from here, there's one more thing I want to specify that we want to extend this animation a bit. And we're going to do that in a particular way. So let's go ahead and add an NI node here. NI node, and we'll just call this blah. And we're going to just be lazy and copy this. So this comes from here, right? So copy branch, paste it out in the open, and we're going to have this, see here, right? 142, number of children 1, and add that as the child, the thing we just duplicated, 35. And we're going to name this blah shape. Okay, and we're going to put this actually in here. You see the NI node, the lift NI node? I'm going to put that in here. You don't have to do this part if you don't want to, but I'm going to kind of demonstrate the extension of this, where we're going really. And so let's add another child here that will be 0. So now we have this here inside. So this is the interesting part. Once you're here, since this is just a vector, what you can do is this. But the interesting thing is it's a vector with the origin set to the origin of its parent, right? Which moved around, and so you can do something like, oh, that's not the right one. 5, 1, 12. Okay, so you see that the vector's moving and its origin is the origin of its parent. Well, we were just manipulating those through the transform controllers. So what you can actually do, maybe imagine, for example, that there's a pack of plates under this bridge and it kind of extends onwards, right? Maybe a fancy, weird bridge is something you want to do, for example. So we can do that. So what we're going to do is, and again, this is kind of an extra part that you don't have to follow. Let's go ahead and add those to blah and blah shape. So that's going to be blah 0, blah shape, and that's going to be 35. So for each node, you want a separate block. So we have one block here. We're going to add another block. We're going to add another block here. Oops, I didn't meant to put that. So 2 blocks. Now, it's going to have the same NI multi-target transform controller. That doesn't change. And let's add NI transform controller here. Down here, everything is right. That's just the extra stuff. Node name is going to be blah. Okay. And I believe we ought to add the node here as well. Although I don't know if it propagates from parent to child like a tree. I don't remember, so I'm going to add it. So blah is now controlled. And we need to add, we're going to copy this over, copy branch, paste here. And then let's go to NI control sequence. Interpolator is going to be the thing we just added. Okay, so 39. And you realize now that it's moving. Interestingly, the funny thing is that you can kind of see that the vector, the velocity of the second vector is twice the velocity of the first, due to what we just did, interestingly enough. So let's go ahead and modify that. We don't want it to go that way. But here's where we can do a little bit of magic is instead of doing that, let's put 4 keys instead. And let's put that to 0 here. Pardon, this to 0. So what we're going to do is, no, I just want 3 keys. And in fact, I'm going to expand it. So I'm going to add some time for myself here. Let's add 7 seconds. And we need to add 7 seconds down here as well. So this new transformer, at 5 seconds it's at 0, but at 7 seconds we want it to extend forward to 512 or something. But okay, so that's done. I don't recall. Okay, okay, yeah. So now we have it, right? So did you see that now it's acting kind of as a joint of the first vector, right? It extends out. It's kind of like a joint, but it's totally dependent on the location of this original one. And you can add collision to this too. You have to follow the same procedure of overriding bhkRigidBody to change those, to change that configuration. Okay. And let me just peruse through this, make sure that everything is in order. So the NI node we just added 142. Let me save it as well. That'll sanitize it. Okay. So that should be good to go. And if we go to controller sequence, make sure that everything will create. We have 7 seconds here and 7 seconds here. And here, add another one. So 7 seconds. This doesn't change at. Oops. Interesting that we just did that, but we're just going to keep it up here. So 7 seconds, it just extends like that. Okay. So that's done. Just verify one more time. So you kind of have two checks here. NifSkope is partially a debugger. Then if it checks out in Creation Kit, you play it in Creation Kit, it works there, and then you finally test it in game. One other thing I wanted to mention is, interestingly, you could also maybe slightly modify this, for example, and so that's an option. And it doesn't it acts as an additional offset, as you can see. So that's something else. But we're done with this. Let's just make sure that the collision is as I want it. I'm going to just put it out here. So since it has successfully imported, that means that everything checks out as far as the fact that it's not a corrupt NIF file. So let's put it down here. If it gives you that error, just go back. Okay. It's a little huge, unfortunately. Press F4 to look at the collision. That checks out. Okay, now I'm putting it over here. And since we have for this thing the behavior graph that we referenced, we have to follow the strings involved in that behavior graph. So what you want to do is have a script link the reference to the thing you just added. Go to util do stuff, or whatever you have, some trigger that you have in there. Mine is on activate. You're gonna either put event on enter, trigger on enter. I don't remember the event name. I have to check. Let's check right now. So I have a default activate self, event on enter, on trigger enter, and then my custom trigger has activate parent pointing to the default activate self trigger. So it's a trigger relay. And so here, get linked ref play animation forward. That's the important thing. Play animation forward. So you, in fact, you're just going to have it like this. You don't need all of this. It's not needed, not important. Just get linked ref, play animation forward, and you want a Boolean. You want to we're going to disable it until it completes, and that really depends. Maybe you want utility.wait 7 seconds or however many seconds. Okay, but that's done. Now remember, forward corresponds to play 01. Corresponds to play 01. So that's done. And let's quickly look at this. So this is also working.